Hey everyone, RogueGold here. Welcome back to The Division 2. And today, I've got a video that I've been itching to make for a few days now. That being because Division 2 community, we've been challenged. And it's a challenge that I intend to rise to the occasion for. To understand where this all started, check out this clip from last week's developer stream where we got a batch of fresh information on the upcoming Division 2 survivors.
But you said it was very fast. We have 4 pieces of concept art that you can like zoom in on and you know plot. And Magnus left you with a tease on the Gamescom, and I'm not satisfied with the response. Like I feel like we should have more threads. I don't feel like anyone like really hit the nail on the head on this one. There's more to undig. So you know we're leaving you stuff. Come on, dig a bit. Show us like what do you think? What do you plot? Come on.
So, that was Anais, one of our community developers, telling us that we have not dove deep enough on the survivors, teases, and images that we've received, and that there's more to uncover and answers left to find. Now, being the speculating psychopath that I am, right, I largely built up a YouTube channel with videos saying, hey, wouldn't it be cool if, or this is what I think this means. When I heard Anais say this on stream, my reaction immediately went something like this.
Really? Oh, so that's how you're gonna play it. You gonna do this? Okay, fine. That's all I needed. That's all I needed for him to do that, and it became personal with me.
Alright, but jokes aside, today we've got the perfect excuse to chat more survivors, and I'm all here for it. So, we're gonna jump straight in, but if you want to see my future videos on the Division 2, including every bit of survivors news that we get leading up to its release, then be sure to subscribe. A major shout out and thank you to our channel members for your continued support and generosity. You guys truly help keep the lights on around here, and I couldn't be more appreciative for it. But, with that down, let's dive straight in. Alright, so this video is going to kind of take 2 different tracks. On the one hand, the developers continue emphasizing that the concept art images that we are receiving for survivors include deliberate teases for different elements, mechanics, who knows, right? So we've analyzed these things before, but today I'm going to go through all 9 images we've gotten for survivors in succession and point out every notable detail that I can find, including some that you in the community have highlighted as well. I'm sure that 90% of it is insignificant, but this challenge demands no stone be left unturned, so we're going to do that, and that should then help set the stage for the final segment within this video, where, given everything that we know right now, I want to give my Hail Mary prediction on what exactly Survivors is. Anais mentioned in the clip that Magnus's tease from Gamescom stating that the title of this new mode and content hints to one of the biggest changes that they're making has not really been cracked yet by the community, and while I don't think that my theory is entirely different to what I've seen some online say, even if a couple of people have mentioned something close, I'm guessing that the community at large has yet to fully adopt or discuss whatever the truth here may be. So am I going to be correct? Most definitely not, but that's the fun about speculation. So without further ado, let's dive down the rabbit hole. We begin here with the first ever image that we got, even though we didn't know it at the time, for the Division 2 survivors. This was the first teaser image that they released all the way back in June, and yeah, if the point was to communicate that snow and winter was coming to the Division 2, this certainly did a very good job. There are 2 main things that I took away from this image. For one is the visual changes to the environment. Not only has winter arrived to Washington, D.C., but clearly something has happened to the landscape, right? The fortifications that are usually set up here as we assault the Capitol building have been wiped out. They're all knocked down. And then additionally, the main one is that this giant contamination tarp is draped over the dome of the building. What does it mean? Why is it there? We'll talk about that in a little bit, but it's here. And then finally, the kind of smaller detail that a lot have picked out of this is that this agent in particular is holding what looks to be kind of a hunting rifle sort of weapon, and his sightline is staring directly at this family of deer that is walking away in the background. So I believe this hints or suggests that some kind of animal presence could be a new mechanic or gameplay component within this mode. Hunting, food gathering, you get the idea. So that's what we get from image number 1 here. Alright, now for image number 2, this was released in the lead up days to Gamescom as kind of the final teaser heading into that event. Honestly, there's not too much that I've been able to pick out of this one, right? We see some very deep snow trenches that this agent is shuffling through, but you know, it's a street of DC, winterized and updated. The one detail that I have picked out is that if you really zoom in on the Capitol building, which we can see once again in the background, that same contamination tarp tarp does not seem to be there. Again, it is pretty like faded and blurred into the background, but it really does not seem like that same dressing is on it that we saw in the first image. Is that intentional? Is that important? Is it just a difference in who made the concept art? I don't know, but that's what I've got on this one. Alright, moving forward, we then get to the 3 different images that were released as part of the Gamescom reveal of the Division 2 survivors. And this first one very much looks like an action shot taken straight out of a movie. 2 main things that I take from this one. Firstly, of the 2 characters that you see within this, the one in front is clearly a Division agent, right? He's got the classic orange watch on. But the woman in the background that is holding on to the ladder coming out of the helicopter, I don't see any identifiable markings of a Division agent. I don't see the watch. I don't see the brick. Plus, she has a very distinctive vest and what looks like a medical bag attached to her. So I think this suggests that helping out and extracting civilians could be a component to this mode. I know some people think that's going to be like the entire premise. I'm not totally convinced of that, but I do absolutely think it could play a part. The other thing then is that if you zoom in on the helicopter, of course, what do you see on here? 3 news. Is this related to the Division 3 in any way, shape, or form? Probably not. But, you know, we are rabid fans out here. Of course, people are going to make that conclusion. So does Survivors in some way give us news or teases towards what we're going to see in the Division 3? I guess we'll find out in due time. Alright, next image here from the Gamescom reveal. A few takeaways in this one. Firstly, it has been pointed out by some in the community, and I agree that the weapon that the agent is holding here doesn't quite look to be the one that we currently have access to in the game. I did not look this up at all, so I could be totally wrong, but just off visuals alone, it kind of reminds me of like the AN-94 that some other games feature. Does this mean Survivors is going to see us getting new kinds of weaponry? Again, is it just a concept art thing? Who knows? Additionally, the hostiles, what you assume to be hostiles that we see in the background here, don't appear to be visibly from any obvious enemy faction, right? There's no like markings of these guys being from the True Sons or the Hyenas or whatever. Again, curious. And then finally, if you zoom in on this tarp all the way in the background, it reads, "If you can read this, you are dead." I believe that is a message and like graffiti marking that you can find in multiple places within the game. It's likely within just an asset pack that the Division 2 team has at hand to them, but still, it made its way into this artwork. They said to look for clues, so I think that's interesting. Alright, then we get the final image here that we got from the Gamescom reveal. 2 main things that I pull from this. Firstly, of course, the main part of the artwork here is that the Washington Monument is ablaze. We know in the recent dev stream, Magnus talked a lot about how the environment is going to go through some geographical changes, and so I think this could be an example of one of those things. Also, kind of under that same umbrella, the Sarah camp, right, the huge walls and different pathways that exist within the mall, right in this portion of the map, that is not here. Normally, if you stand where the agents are, which I believe is pretty close to the Lincoln Memorial, and you look towards the monument, there would be these huge walls in the way because that giant Sarah camp that's right near Tidal Basin is there. That's not present here. Once again, is that just a concept art thing? Is that actually going to be representational of the map that we find in Survivors? Who knows? Alright, then we move on to the more recent concept art images that we've been given. This was the teaser image used for the recent developer stream. A number of things to pull from this. Firstly, just like we saw with the Capitol building back in that first image, the White House here has gone through some transformation as we know it and can compare it to in the live game. For one, you can see the visible damage, right? One of the banisters on the front of it is broken off. The top has a huge chunk removed, and it is also draped, although not quite the same tarps as on the Capitol building. This does have, you know, more like cloth and tarps draped over it. I know there is a big popular community theory out there that Survivors is going to see us playing as first wave agents and that this is like a flashback mode to like back, you know, when the outbreak first began. I think this disproves that because this damage is not visible on the White House in the current live game that we play. Additionally, though, as you can see on the right side of these agents, the social space, right, where we hang out and do all of our crafting and build construction, that has been wiped out. The walls are down, and this whole place looks desolate. The next thing is that these agents are cautiously approaching what looks to be a pack of wild dogs. And just like we saw the deer in that original image at the Capitol building, I believe this provides further evidence that animal threats or just animals playing into the mechanics could very well be a part of Survivors. You either hunt them for food or you need to watch out for them if you don't want to take damage. And then finally, if we look way in the background, you can see that there is a chopper, presumably an extraction chopper, flying around the sky. And because we now have images of this happening both at daytime and nighttime, that would seem to prove that extractions can happen regardless of the weather, and that'll play a bit more into the overall timeline of things when we get to that section in just a minute. Alright, next we have our final 3 images that were given to us on the most recent developer stream. A good number of things to pull from this one. Firstly, as you can see, this trio of division agents is protecting a civilian right here, at least what looks to be a civilian. So once again, a lot of people are theorizing that this is going to play a part in the mode. Again, I don't think it is the focus, but I totally think it's possible that there could be sub-objectives where you have to find civilians and extract them, of course protect them from any threats that are coming their way, hence this image. Next up, we get our third look across all of these images of the Capitol building in the background there, and in this one, you can see that those same drapes and the contamination tarp is over the dome. What I'm a little bit confused about is the placement of this image. Right from the perspective here, it would look like we're on the back side of the Capitol building because it looks like those drapes are wrapped around the front, which is what we saw in that original image. However, if you then pan over a little bit, you can see these like skyscrapers next to it, and those don't exist within the DC map that we know, at least. So which side of the building are we actually on? What skyline are we looking at in the background? I'm not entirely sure, but that's certainly very interesting. Just like the other image that we saw with hostiles in the background, the enemies that we're seeing approaching the agents here don't look to be from any obvious faction. They kind of range from looking pretty militaristic to looking more like they're just from some random civilian militia. So yeah, interesting. And then finally, I saw a few people point out that the backpack that this agent is wearing, who's trying to like break down the door on the side, very much looks similar to either the Nomad or Banshee backpacks from back in the Division 1. Again, my assumption is that this was just an easy asset that they have access to that they were able to put in this. But again, the devs keep saying all this is intentional, so there you go. That's a backpack from the Division 1. Next up, we have this image again from the recent dev stream. I'll be honest with you guys, I scoured this entire thing. I cannot find one detail in here that I think is particularly notable. Maybe one of you have. I would love to hear it down below. But for now, I'll just leave it at the fact that the agent is holding Tommy, who has been our unofficial mascot ever since the Division 2 went live. Alright, and then finally, we get this image from down in the sewers, or the underground. The one thing that I caught that I didn't originally see when they showed this on stream is that you can actually see a ton of rats fleeing. If you look on the sides, like those are all, again, what I assume to be rats, running out of here on both sides of the agent. And we can presume that that is from whatever environmental danger is ahead in this tunnel, right? These flames that we see. I think this could represent a more randomized element that we find within the mode, where different parts of the map could be different on various runs, right? Let's say one time you play this and this tunnel is fully accessible and you can just go straight through, or the next time, like this agent is experiencing, you get here and there's a pipe burst and this whole tunnel is filled with flames, and so that pathway is now blocked off and you have to find an alternative route to get to where you want to go. I think this would help a lot with the replayability of the mode, keep you on your toes, whereas the original survival was very static in terms of spawns and loot and all of that. But yeah, that's what we've got from that one. Alright, well, that is just about everything that I've been able to gather from the survivors images that we've been given thus far. Certainly, if there is anything within those 9 pieces of concept art that you think I've missed, that you've spotted, and I didn't mention, be sure to comment them below. I want to know what you're seeing, and I'm not. Alright, now, as I mentioned earlier, given everything that we know so far, I want to now give my prediction at this point in time for what Survivors truly is. We know that this is a successor to the Division 1's survival mode, and that at its core, it is an extraction shooter-esque mode with both PvE and PvP playlists. But what's changed? What's evolved? What does the name of this mode really mean? Again, that was a huge tease that Magnus gave us back at Gamescom. So to intro this, there was one moment from this last week's dev stream, which to me really solidified the theory that I'm about to give. So take a look at this.
The final way that I want to talk about is that because of the events that's led up to the situation that you're in Survivors, there's been a lot of change to many of the places you know.
Alright, did you hear that? He said because of the events that have led up to the situation that you're in Survivors. That tells me a lot. So, again, here goes nothing, but here's my prediction. I think that due to a major story event that is yet to happen, either Natalia Sokolova or some other major force attacks Washington, D.C., or that region of the country. I know a lot of people have theorized a nuclear attack, given all of the nuclear football talks within the lore. I mean, if we were to see a direct nuclear strike, that would simply wipe out the city, right? There wouldn't be a D.C. left for us to play in. But it could be something like a nuke that was detonated in the atmosphere and rained down radioactive material, it could be a series of heavy artillery strikes, who knows. But something has clearly changed the landscape here, right? The Capitol building is draped in tarps, the White House is visibly damaged, a bunch of gates and fortifications are wiped out, the Washington Monument, as we saw, is ablaze. Something more than just a heavy snowstorm has gone down, and this is what I think it is. So, that meaning that the name Survivors hints to the fact that this mode spotlights the survivors of this attack, right? Both civilian, hostile, and Division agents alike. So whereas the original Survival had us starting out with no gear due to the helicopter crash, this time around it could simply be because the settlements have been attacked, right? There is no stash or gear left for us to suit up with. And this whole event has inconveniently coincided with the beginning of winter, meaning that a lack of resources plus worsening conditions in the environment around us mean that we need to venture out and contend for what limited supplies are remaining. From the information that we've been given so far, we know that this mode will not be as linear as the original Survival was. By that I mean, back in the original, every single run began in the thick of the blizzard, right? The chopper goes down at night, you're injured, and you have to trek into the blinding snow. But from Magnus's info, we know that the weather this time around will be dynamic. He states that the snowstorms rolling in will be random, and that the chance of that happening can drastically impact the gameplay, as you will then need to seek shelter or flee underground. Also, as I pointed out while we were going through the images, we've seen extraction choppers at both daytime and nighttime, further underscoring the idea that Survivors may be a lot more like a winter survival simulator more than a linear survival experience. I think that each time you load into this, you've got a handful of varied objectives that you've been tasked with. That could be to hunt and bring back some venison, to find and secure a surviving civilian. If you complete those tasks and extract, you win, or if you fail and die, you get the idea. And of course, along the way, you will run into other agents, hostile factions, and the ever-changing weather conditions to make things all the more difficult. So, there you have it, folks. That is my very best shot at living up to the team's call for a deeper dive on Survivor speculation. Again, is any of it correct? I'm sure not. But I love making these kinds of videos anyway, so if you made it all the way through, thank you so much for watching. But it would not be complete without you all leaving your own thoughts on the matter down below. How do you interpret all of the information that we've gotten so far on the Division 2 Survivors? Do you agree with any or all of my predictions here? Or maybe you oppose them entirely and have your own take on what Survivors is going to be? Let me know. I'd love to hear it. That's about all I've got for today, though. I eagerly await our next Survivors news batch, which we know from the devs is coming sometime in November, but we will just have to wait patiently until then. But I will catch you back soon with plenty of other Division content in the meantime. Thanks again, everybody. RogueGold out.